How y'all doing out there in video land? This is Stiletto coming at you from the Wild Wild West. Well, today I just want to have a little discussion, a little update on the M1. The M1, people. I've been carrying it now for about a week, off and on. And all I can say is I absolutely love it. I think this is awesome. I think it is an awesome knife. You know, I know the first videos I made of it, you know, when I disassembled it and everything, I was kind of frustrated with the way that, you know, you take it apart and put it back together due to the way that the pivot's designed. But you know what? This one functions really, really, really nice, people. And the fit and finish on it is just awesome. It's like a refined Recon. That's the way I would describe this one. It's like a refined Recon. I absolutely love it now. Love it just as much as all my others. And do I like it better than the Taiwanese one? I would have to say in lots of ways, yes. And the ways I would like it better is in the fit and finish and the way that it functions. You know, it functions super smooth. You don't feel any grittiness no more. I know I took it apart and lubed and tuned it. When I first got it, it was gritty. But since then, it has been super smooth. And it stays centered, doesn't come loose. Operates, you know, perfectly. And the finishes on the lock bar and everywhere else, I think they must have used either DLC or PVD or something, because they use a finish that's a lot better than the old TFX finish that they used to use on the lock bars. Even the DLC models, like this one, that's why another thing I want to point out. Even though this has a DLC finish on the blade, on the lock bar, I've heard people call this a DLC finish. This is not a DLC finish. This is what they used to call a TFX. It's like a painted on finish, sort of. It's like you can take it comes off real easily with paint remover. That's how easy it comes off. This won't come off easily with the paint remover. This won't come off with paint remover. This will. That's the difference. It's like I don't know if it's like a baked on finish or whatever. I'm sure it probably is sort of baked on or whatever, but it's a lot like paint, people. And I would call it a TFX finish. It's not a PVD coating. It's like the worst coating you can get for coatings for your knives. You don't want a TFX finish on your blade. That's what Cold Steel used to use back in the early days of Cold Steel. They used to use TFX finishes. I used to always remove them. And that's like a lot of the old Oz 8 knives that you see of mine that are polished. It's because they had the TFX finish on them, and I removed the finish. So when you see this black shiny finish on the old Cold Steel knives, that's on the lock bar and on the backspacer and stuff, that's not a high-end finish. That's not PVD. It's not DLC. It's not titanium nitrate. It's not any of those kind of finishes. It's a TFX finish, people. That's all I want to point out. Now on this one, I think they're actually using a really good finish on all the parts, the hardware and the parts on the M1. I think that's either a PVD coating. I think it's the same coating that they're using on the blade. Let me put it that way. I don't know what they're using on the blade. I don't know if it's a DLC or a PVD, but it looks a lot like a PVD, but it could be a DLC, because I know that, you know, Cold Steel likes to use DLC finishes. But PVD coating is a real good coating too. And lots of the upper end manufacturers use PVD coatings. Like Hogue, for instance, like to use PVD coatings. And so does what's the other one? SOG likes to use titanium nitrate, and Benchmade likes to use Cerakote, I think it is. Sometimes they use DLC or PVD too, though. They usually use Cerakote, at least on the older blades. Anyway, and Cold Steel used to always use on their older blades the shiny black coating that you see. That's a real tough coating. That's a black DLC. And the new coating, this is the new black DLC that's a flat black finish instead of a shiny finish. And this one, I'm not sure what this is. It looks like it could be the new DLC coating, or it could be a PVD coating. But I think whatever it is, I think they're using the same coatings on the lock bar and the backspacer. This is aluminum backspacer, just like this, you know, just like they've always used. They always use the heat-treated 6061 aluminum backspacer. Your screws screw directly into the backspacer. I think it's an awesome knife, people. It is super smooth, handles super easily. And if you look at this backspacer, I don't know if you can see down in this one, but it looks like it's made for a Tanto. It looks like it's made to accept a Tanto blade. Let me see if I got my flashlight. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. I don't know if you can see down in there now. But see the way that this is shaped? You see it like that? The way this is shaped like it could accept a Tanto blade. Just like the way this one's shaped. Now this is a custom backspacer from Snaggletooth MF, but it's shaped to handle all the different blades. And that's what Cold Steel did the Recon, because it has to accept 3 different types of blades. So they make the backspacer, you know, universal. And I think this backspacer is made so it can accept a Tanto blade too, people. That means I have hope. I have hope. I have hope that Tanto will be coming. You know me, people, I want a Tanto. I want a Tanto MagnaCut. If they come out with a Tanto MagnaCut from Italy, made just like this one, I'm buying it. It's going to be mine. It's going to be mine. That's the one I want. This one is made very well. This one's made for the people who can appreciate a very well-made Recon 1 type folder. Now, with that being said, it is not easy to take apart and to reassemble. It is not easy to take apart and reassemble. And in all actuality, you don't really have to, because this could be blown, you know, with when you got bronze phosphorus washers and Teflon washers, they're not bearings. So, you know, you don't really have to worry about them getting like dirt trapped all inside of them. All you have to really do is just have a high pressure air and a little bit of, you know, soap and water, high pressure air, and just wash it out and then put a couple drops of oil down and it'd be just fine. You don't never really have to take it apart, people. I take them apart because I want to show you guys what it looks like on the inside. And I want to show you how easy it is to assemble and reassemble, you know, because I know a lot of people are like me that do like to modify their stuff and take it apart and pull maintenance on it and see how it works. I've been like that with everything since I was a little kid. I used to always take apart my bicycles and put them back together because I want to see how they work. But anyway, people, it's a beautiful knife. I highly recommend it. I highly recommend it. I must admit, though, with the unboxing of this one, I wasn't too impressed with the way it came out the box, because it was real gritty and everything else like that. It felt like it just needed to be cleaned. And I took it apart and all I did was tune and lube it. I didn't modify anything. You know, I just lubed it and I just cleaned it up and lubed it and put it back together and tuned it. And that's all I did to this knife. And it's been operating perfectly ever since. Perfectly. I mean, perfectly. Look at that. There's no up and down, no side to side. I mean, just a little tiny tick side to side. That's the way I do all of my Cold Steel Triad folders with bronze phosphorus washers and Teflon washers, people. I never tighten them down to where there's absolutely no side to side at all. I don't do that. Why? Because I think it's hard on the Teflon washer itself. I think it's always best to just leave it just a touch, tiny, not a whole lot, just a tiny little tick side to side. When you do that, I think it takes just enough, right amount of pressure off the Teflon washer, and it makes your Teflon washers last. Your Teflon washer shouldn't wear out. It should last, you know, for years. My Oz 8 towel war that I carry all the time, I've had that knife now for what, about at least 12 years or something like that, and the washer still looks good because I don't torque it down tight on the pivot. You just got to leave it a little bit loose, and then when you leave it a little bit loose, you know, it's gonna drop shut and everything else like you want it to do. It's gonna open and close, you know, so you don't want to tighten it down where you're strangling the pivot. You want to have it be able to, you know, get a little gasp of air, you know, give it a little break. But this one works perfect, people. Absolutely love it. But then again, if you don't want to spend, you know, the 2 bills for this one, the 2 bins for this one, and you only got 1 bin, This one all day long, people. You know, CPM-S35VN. I know it's not MagnaCut, CPM-MagnaCut, but it's still an awesome steel. And it's an awesome powder metallurgy steel, you know, just like all the other modern super steels. It's excellent. This is an excellent knife too. And I think it's, I don't want to say it's just as good as this one or this one's just as good as this one, but they both could do the same thing. You know, I know this one's got a different blade type. I don't have one of the newer ones in a clip blade because I like the Tonto blade, so I always get the Tonto blades. If this would have came in a Tonto blade, I would have got this over the Tonto blade over the clip blade with this one. But the only blade that they have in the new MagnaCut one, the F1, the M1 is the new clip blade. As soon as they come out of the Tonto blade, people, you know I'm gonna have the Tonto blade. That'll be the one I really carry. This one I'm carrying it now and stuff like that, but it's not gonna be like the one I'm gonna want to carry all the time. Why? Because I like my Tontos. I just want to carry a Tonto blade. But I absolutely love this one. This is only the second clip blade or Bowie type blade Recon 1 I've ever purchased. I have one other. It's an Oz 8, one of the original ones from back in the day. It's probably 14 years old or something like that. And it's in the safe. I think you guys have seen it before. I've made videos of it before. But it has a hollow ground. And I don't know how thick it is behind the edge. Somebody was asking me today how thick this one is behind the edge. And I'm going to measure it right where the DLC mark, I'm calling this finish a DLC finish. The DLC finish mark starts, you know, and goes up to the rest of the blade and ends and goes into the edge. So let's measure it out and see what we can find. And since I don't have one of those other ones, one of these, a new one with the clip blade, because the new ones have a flat ground blade like this one, people. It's a Saber flat ground blade. This is a Saber flat ground blade. You got a flat right here, and then it goes down into the edge right here. So it's a Saber flat ground. It's a high saber. It's not a medium saber like a bayonet blade. It's a high saber, and it goes down into the edge. Same thing with this one. This is a high saber too. It goes down in the edge. Now this one feels like it has a hollow. This one's still a hollow. Even though, you know, it appears to look kind of flat, I can feel the hollow. This one, on the other hand, is a flat. So these two, I wouldn't expect them to be the same or be a good example of what's what when it comes to what's behind the edge on these two, because they've got two different types of blade types and two different types of grind types. So I'm just going to measure this one. I'm going to tell you what I found on the internet and somebody else's measurements and what they said. Okay, behind the edge, right behind the edge. That's what we're trying to do. And this is in millimeters. You got 0.63 millimeters. 0.63 millimeters. Let's see if I can get it. Trying to get up near the tip. I know it's going to thicken up near the tip, people, because 0.80 millimeters near the tip, and then at the tip, 0.86 millimeters at the tip. Right here at the heel, 0.58 millimeters, 0.64 millimeters, 0.62 millimeters. So it's like 0.6 in this area right here. This area of the blade right here is like 0.6 millimeters. When you get up here, it turns into 0.88 millimeters. Like right from here forward, it turns into 0.8 because it's thickening up for the blade tip. Add a little strength to the blade tip probably. But down here's your main part of your cutting edge, and it's 0.6 millimeters. Okay, now what I found on the internet was one of these that was not the M1, but a modern Recon one from the new company. And he did a review of his and he measured it and it came out to 0.7 millimeters. So this one's a little bit thinner behind the edge. That's what I would say. Going by what I've learned on the internet, comparing it to what I found on mine. I would say this one's thinner behind the edge. I hope that answers your question. But people, I absolutely love this one. I absolutely love it. Oh, another thing I want to measure too is the girth. The girth. Because I think this one might be wider. Have more girth in the handle. Let me see what we got here. Zero back out, going in millimeters. I'm going to measure right here where the lock is. 13.47 millimeters. 13.47 millimeters. On this one, I can compare it to 13 millimeters. So it's like a half a millimeter thicker. This one's a half a millimeter thicker than this one. Let me show you guys. Okay. A couple people asked me about that too. And the weight. Oh yeah, that's one other thing. I didn't weigh them last time. Let's weigh them. Let's see what they weigh. .6 ounces. Now this one has a snaggletooth cog ring on it too, so I imagine that might add a little bit of weight. Probably not that much though. 5.5 ounces, so this one's a little bit heavier. And that you know, the reason why for that is that this one has a thicker blade, stock. This is a true 3.5 millimeter, 3.5 millimeter blade stock. This one is just under 3.4 millimeters, if I remember right. Like 3.7 millimeters or 3.57 or 3.7 or something like that, 3.37 or something like that, millimeters thick. This one has a thicker lock bar. This one has like the old style thickness of the lock bar, and this one has a little bit thinner lock bar. Still, you know, like thicker than the blade stock. You know, it's not thinner than the blade stock, it's thicker than the blade stock, but it's thinner than these. Not by much, it's just like a very small amount. And the information I got for the other one came from Budget Guy's review of the Cold Steel Recon M1. Canadian, and the reviewer is Canadian Cutting Edge. Canadian Cutting Edge. That's the information I got for the new one of these I compared it to. He said his cutting edge, right where I measured mine at, was 7 millimeters. This one is 6.58 or something like that. It's a little bit thinner. I absolutely love this one, people. Absolutely love it. You know, it's different, you know, but that's cool though, because this is the Italian one. It's not the Taiwanese one. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. It's kind of cool that it's a little bit different in, you know, different little ways or whatever. But I would say that this one is much more refined. You're getting better finishes on your other parts besides just the blade. You're getting better finishes. I like the way these G10 handle scales feel with the extra with the new texturing. I like this, just like the right amount of texture. I like the way the finger grooves feel when I hold it. It's an awesome knife. It's an awesome knife. I know that on cutting on the Canadian channel, he was complaining about he didn't like the hardware on his Recon 1. His is a CPM-S35BN1, but it's a new one. But he didn't like the hardware on it. He was saying that he stripped out one screw on his already. I could sort of understand that. T6 screws, you know, aren't the greatest screws. It'd be great if these were like T8s or something a little bit more robust, and then just use a T10 and T8 on the body screws. I think that's the way this one should be made. I don't disagree with that. And the other problem he didn't like the thumb stud. He thought the thumb stud should be the same length on both sides. I totally agree with that too. I never understood why they make a short side and a long side. A knife that is very easily, ambidextrous, just by switching a pocket clip. I think all Triad folders should have equal length thumb studs on each side. Because me, I like to reverse finger flick all the time. And it's just harder when you got this little tiny nub. Makes it so much easier when you got a full length pocket clip. A thumb stud. But this one still, reverse finger flicks because it's just smooth. This is a smooth knife, people. It's very smooth. The two phosphorus bronze washers, I sort of thought about it. I think they might be doing that because they want to have a separate washer, separate from the washer that might ride against the steel insert. It sort of makes sense to me when I thought about it, and so I think that's the reason why they're using the two washers like that. I think there's a reason for it. So I wouldn't try to just replace it with one washer, people. If you want to replace the washers in these or whatever, I think it's meant to be the way it is. I think there's a reason for those two washers to be in there like that. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it, people. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. It's going to be one of my favorite carries for a while. I sort of wish, though, that they'd make one without any finishes on it. This is MagnaCut, people. This is super stain-resistant steel. So they don't really need to have a finish on it that, unless you're just doing it for a tactical purpose. That's what a Recon 1 is. It is a tactical folder. I totally get it. Totally get it. You want to have the non-glare finish, and, for those that are getting tactical situations overseas in combat or law enforcement or what have you. You don't want a shiny knife. I totally get that. Totally get that. But for the civilian population, they need to make a civilian version where, I don't know, make a polished one. Have a mirror polished blade. I know you're not going to do that. But at least give us a satin one. Satin one and, the satin finishes or whatever. So, because me, I would use this knife for my everyday work knife. I'm telling you what my purposes for this knife would be. My everyday work knife, this is a perfect knife to go to work with me every day. It's fun to use, fun to handle, fun to fidget with. It cuts like a champ. It slices through things. It really cuts very well. But for food prep knives, I always like to have unfinished blades, uncoated blades, me myself. And I would love to have one of these uncoated. I'm not going to take the finish off of this one. I'm always going to leave it the way it is. I'm not modifying this one at all. I'm going to leave this one the way it is, people. I'm going to wait until the Tonto comes out, and then that's the one I'm going to modify. If they make a Tonto, that'll be the one I'll modify, because I'll make it like this one, people. If I get a Tonto one, it will be my new everyday carry for self-defense, for motorcycling and stuff. It'll be one like this. I'll make a MagnaCut M1 Recon M1. But this kind of blade, I like it for like work. And why do I like it for work? Because you got a nice thin tip. It's good for slicing. The blade is good for cutting and slicing. It's actually good for cutting chores. This knife would be a great knife for the hunter, for the outdoorsman, because it'd be a great knife for cleaning game and animals and all that kind of stuff. It'd be a good knife for light duty camp chores. I wouldn't do any prying or tip testing or anything like that with this kind of tip, because it is a thin tip, people. I wouldn't be trying to throw this into trees and stuff like that either. You know what I mean? Because it's not a heavily reinforced tip. This knife is meant to be a cutter. It's sort of like my Spyderco military 2. I think of that one as a cutting tool. It's meant to be, a utility knife, a cutting tool. That's the way I would sort of think of this. Now, if I want a combat folder, this is a combat folder to me. Where you got, a seriously strong tip and blade stock, and I don't know, it's just, this one's meant for, self-defense purposes. That's the way I think of the Tontos. That's why I like them, though. That's why I love them. Great blades, people. I highly recommend both of these. Whatever flips your fancy. If you want a good work knife, this is an awesome work knife. That is an awesome work knife. It'd be an awesome gift. It'd be an awesome knife to get for yourself if you need a good work knife for work. It'd be a good hunting knife, good outdoorsman's knife. You know, it's a jack of all trades. It's just a really nice knife, people. And it's really made very nicely. It's put together very well. You know, and if you're the kind of person that doesn't like taking apart your knives, I would just recommend just, lubing this when you get it. You know, just put drops of oil down into it, and then work it down into the phosphorus bronze washers and Teflon washers, and they get loosened up like that, smoothed out like that. But if you like to take apart your stuff and stuff like that, that's why I sort of really recommend for this one, for people to get this one. It sort of needs to be disassembled, but it's not an easy one to disassemble, so I'm not going to recommend people disassembling it. Because I can see a lot of people messing up this knife if they disassemble it and don't do it right. This knife is beautiful, people. But it's not one that likes to be taken apart. But if you ever do venture that far into it and you take it apart and you lube and tune it, it turns into a master Recon. Instead of being MagnaCut 1, it'd be Master 1. Recon Master 1. Absolutely love it, people. They did a good job on it. And I've heard, I don't know for sure, but I've heard that the heat treatment is in between 62 and 63 HRC for the MagnaCut on this knife. All right, people. Peace out. Stiletto.